welcome to the Think Realty podcast. We're so excited that you are here with us. This is our live edition of the podcast as we're actually sitting in Tampa, Florida at our conference this week, and excited to bring a lot of guests to you live. And so we've got a great guest for you in just a second, but before we get to that guest, let me say a quick thank you to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Streamline Funding. Streamline helps builders grow by providing high leverage loans. Less down, more working capital to keep your projects moving and your portfolio growing. Get your deal done today by visiting streamlinefunding.com or by calling 512-250-8575. Again, that's streamlinefunding.com. Our guest today is a longtime friend of mine, someone that I've known and admired for years. A guy that's done business well, and he's done a lot of various things. And so I want to welcome to the podcast, Tom Olson. Tom, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Eddie. Appreciate you having me on. It's a nice sunny day this morning in Tampa, right?
It is a nice sunny day. Is it hotter in Tampa or hotter in Indiana?
It's about the same right now. This year it's been weird. So we opened up a second market in Pensacola.
Okay.
So we've been back and forth, and it's just...
very cool.
Sometimes it's been hotter in Indiana than Florida,
yeah.
And it is what it is. But
yeah. So we're obviously in one of the biggest undulations we've seen in the marketplace in the past 5-6 years.
Yep.
Probably since 2010.
12 years maybe.
Yeah, 12
10
years. And it's been quite a ride. And I know that a lot of the groups that you speak at, you've been kind of warning of this moment for a little while. You've been talking a lot about preparation for this moment. If you don't mind, before we jump into where we are and what the economy looks like, just kind of like talk about your current model, the businesses you have, what you're doing from a business standpoint.
Sure. So when people ask me what I do, I always say I pretty much build and manage investments for investors. Like that's really who my avatar is. I'm not really a fix and flipper, although we do. I'm not really a landlord, although we own a lot of properties. I'm not really a property manager, although we have a property management company that we manage almost 500 doors now. So we do, that's what we do. We build and manage rental portfolios, lending portfolios, and now we have a fund as well that people can invest in.
That's great.
For accredited investors. And we have so some of this stuff has kind of happened over the last 2 years. My wife just opened up a brokerage, full-scale brokerage as well. So as you know, I used to have the Good Success Mastermind, used to be a part of that, and it was great, but it was taking up a lot of my time. And once I kind of decided to go away from that, I said, okay, let's do lending, let's start the fund, let's start the brokerage, let's do some other businesses that I think are really scalable. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we do. We buy and sell a bunch of houses in Olson Group Network. My background's construction, so I actually helped other investors flip 300 homes before I ever got into this business myself. Mm-hmm. So I'm a licensed contractor all over Northwest Indiana as well. Property management company, our investment company. We have short-term rentals, long-term rentals, vacation rentals, an ATM portfolio. We do loans. We do some other just various investments in that company as well. Good Success now has turned into kind of just doing some free stuff for the community. So we do free calls each month. And we do a free event each year. So that's really about me, and I try to make it so I don't have a job in the business as much as I possibly can. So I also do some consulting, and I've written 3 books as well, when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
that's great.
That's what I spend my time doing, and that's what
Sure.
we do for investors.
It's nice that you're diversified across lending and investing and managing investors' capital and their assets. With the current marketplace, we've seen a historic rise in interest rates in the past, few weeks, months. There's an impending rise again. Most people believe that Powell raised interest rates another 0.5 point, 0.75%, within the next 30 days or so. What are you doing and what are you saying to those investors that are trusting you with their capital or with their properties about your belief in where this marketplace goes?
Boy, I'm not sure if we have time for all of that, but I will give it a stab. So I will say, if you're on the retail side of the market right now, if you're a fix and flipper, we probably have 2 or 3 houses, honestly, that are kind of sitting right now in that. And I'll be honest with you, kind of leading up to this, I felt like I kind of already went through that wave of fear early, and now everybody else is kind of hitting that wave. I did a lot of prayer, soul searching, just a lot of hey, what is our next move? And I kind of just announced it at our quarterlies, and I've really gone through this with our teams. We're really actually going to go back to wholesaling A-B markets, which I haven't wholesaled in 8 years, I think now, maybe 7 years. But we're going back to wholesaling A-B markets and the turnkey model. Because the thing is, 1% turnkeys work in every market. It doesn't really matter.
Sure.
And it's interesting because we still have a ton of turnkey investors that still want to buy properties from us. We don't have, it's never been a problem with demand to be able to sell those. The problem for us the last 2 years is that same 120 to 150 property that rents for 12 to 1500, we could sell on the retail market for 200. And so it was kind of for us, we were kind of forced into doing some different things. But I'm kind of excited to get back to that investor base and get back to being able to help our investors build their portfolios. If you want to look at the economy and where we're going and what my thoughts are on things, I will say I still remember, and it's funny because one of the people that me and you know, Glenn Stromberg, actually I was just in an event with him and he announced to everybody, he's like, Tom Olson was right, I was wrong. He was one of the people in 2017 that said, the market's going down. And I'm like, no, there's no data that shows this. There's no warning signs. It's just made up fear from some. And guess what? 2017 they said that. 2018 they said that. 2009. I mean, it was just it never ended. It was always going to crash, right? And I'm like, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, if you say it's going to crash for long enough, eventually you'll be right, and eventually you'll be the hero, I guess. And if you want to sell books, and if that's what your game is, then fine. But for the real people that are really doing the work and understand what's going on in the market, it was never going to happen. You knew it. I mean, I remember you kind of saying the same thing during that period of time. But last year and the beginning of this year, things changed, and I started saying in January of this year, hey, it's happening. There are fundamental cracks now that are happening. And interest rates were still low. And we were telling everybody, refinance as much as you can, get as much long-term debt as you can at these short-term rates. I mean, these low rates. And we were doing as much as we possibly could ourselves as well. But today, I mean, if you ask me what I really think is going to happen, I believe that they will continue to push on interest rates probably to the end of this year. If you ask me, I think that we'll probably have 2, 3, maybe even 4 more interest rate hikes. I don't think long-term it's sustainable. I don't think that the federal government can pay the interest on it, on our own debt. And I think eventually, next year, maybe in 2024, at some point, they'll have to ease up and we'll probably get back down to these historically low rates. And I still see a ton of cash in the market. There's still a bunch of cash. And until that cash gets flushed out, I think it's going to be really hard for us to have a long-term depression. So I'm not trying to say that there is no blood in the streets, because there will be. I still think I think the stock market's still going down. I think crypto's still going down. I think any equity you got in your property over the last 2 years is already gone. You just don't realize it yet. So I think if you're going to sell, it's probably not a great time to sell. I told my investors the last 2 years it may be time to sell. Now I'm telling my investors, no, if you're trying to sell, let's just hold on. Let's wait. Let's wait this out. Rents have increased, and let's just wait till that next bull run. So that's my philosophy. It's kind of where I'm moving my own chips. The other thing that I think is a dynamic that since we're in Florida, we probably should talk about it. I mean, everybody's moving to Florida. It's just insane. So I started a market in Pensacola, Florida. I always like those markets that nobody else really thinks about. You can have the Miamis, you can have those. I don't want to be any part of Orlando, but give me those markets that are kind of they're sleeping little markets, and the jobs that are surging there, and all the military that's there is just a very stable. And it's not, the prices haven't gone berserk like they have all around the rest of the state. So. I believe that Florida is probably more insulated than a lot of the rest of the country because of so many people moving here. So I think that Florida is a different play, different flavor. It's interesting because the people that are investing in Florida haven't even felt this until about now. They're starting to hear rumblings, but we've been feeling it for 90 days already in different markets in different parts of the country.
Yeah, so let me give you a couple of quick stats, and I want to hear just thoughts on those real quick, and then I want to get to something else. There's still, even though the interest rates have risen, we're still 6.5 million homes underbuilt. There's still a demand, there's still a buyer demand currently that's not being serviced of 6.5 million homes, not apartment complexes, but true homes. interest rates today, even if Powell raises the interest rates here in the near future, 0.75, still are beneath where we were in the Obama administration. And even though inflation has gone up $450 on average per American consumer, the average wage for Americans has actually gone up over $1,300 since the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. What do you think about when you hear those numbers? I mean, does it just solidify what you just said?
I think in a way, yes. In a way, I feel like data is funny thing. You know, facts are funny things. Maybe that's a better way to. So the facts say, like, people shouldn't be having fear right now, right? But reality is, like, consumer sentiment's as low as it's been since 2008. I mean, we have the least popular president of all time.
Yeah.
So when you have
consumer
a lot of
confidence
confidence,
right.
all these things are super low. So that's going to affect behaviors. So, you know, with all that being said, like, and that's partly why I think why a lot of the people, a lot of the institutions, a lot of people that I talk to don't really believe this is going to be long-lived. It is a short-lived, and I think as soon as there's a change and you can see a change for the better, all this money that's sitting on the sidelines is just going to dump right back in. So I really just feel like this is going to be this short-lived, maybe 1 year, and I say short. It could be a year. It could be 2 years. I don't know. But I do feel like it's going to pop back up. Is my belief, and that's how I'm operating because of what you said. Like, you know, there is still a shortage of single-family homes for sure. Absolutely. I mean, nobody's going to dispute that. There is also population movement that we haven't seen before. You know, California lost population for the first time in its history, I think, or something in the last couple of years. So many people are moving to different areas. And even if you go back to 2008, you remember there's markets that crashed, like Boston, like went half. Like $600,000 house in Boston was like $300,000. And then you had a market like Dallas, barely moved at all. You know, the rents actually softened in Dallas, which is actually strange to me because they didn't soften anywhere else that I remember in the country. But a lot of my Texas investors will remind me in 2008, like, we had to lower our rents. I don't remember that. We raised rents. I think you were in Northwest Indiana in our area, and we raised rents. I can remember them going from 1,100 to 1,200. I mean, that's what they were back then. So I think you're right. Like, we are short in housing. Supply and demand eventually will rule out. That's the fundamentals. And that's why why I'm kind of excited about going back into this. If I can offer 1% turnkey rentals to my investors, I know long term it's going to be a good investment for them.
And then obviously if you're wholesaling, it gives you first access to the deals. It kind of puts you back on the street, making sure that, you know, if there is blood on the street, if there is opportunity, that you're there, you know.
Exactly. And I'm wholesaling AB markets, you know, turnkey BC markets type of deal. So like that's my mind. And if the A markets do drop dramatically, I won't have to take that. You know, I won't have to take that loss. So that's kind of like how, and honestly, like, we've just been more conservative on our lending. You know, just being careful with our ARVs and making sure that, you know, 3 months ago comps aren't the comps we're using today. So that's kind of how we're trying to make sure that we stay safe, our investors stay safe, and long term we can ride this out, because I really do think, I mean, it's funny, you got somebody like Dave Ramsey that says you're never going to find a house cheaper than it is today. Well, I think he's a little bit wrong. It might go down a little bit, but I do believe when he says it'll be more expensive in 5 years from now, he's probably right. Like, all these houses that we think are overinflated and too high right now are probably going to be more expensive 5 years from now, and definitely more expensive 10 years from now.
Statistically, he can't be wrong, right? Like, since 1897, we've never had a 5-year period in the American history since 1897 where houses haven't increased some, right? So, last quick thing here. I know we're kind of wrapping up, but I know you've had a big year of giving back, and that's a big part of your heart is to give back. And I know you've been kind of like out of the country and doing various things. Do you mind just kind of like giving us an overview of what that's looked like and where that's going in the future?
I'd love to. And my heart is that I have two big goals in my life. One is to flip the city of Gary, Indiana, and one is to give away $1 billion. And I kind of felt in 2020, you know, we were all scared here in the United States. We had no idea how bad this pandemic was going to be. We had no idea, you know, there's so many talking heads, so many different ways to think about it. But the one thing I did know was that there was people that had it way worse than I did. The thing I did know is that people in Peru that live, you know, where they have to go to work, they get money today, and then they go to the store and buy food that they can eat tonight, and then they do the same thing the next day. There's no thought of investments and future and, you know, building a legacy or build, you know, all those things that we get to enjoy here in the United States. So I said, you know, it was almost like God was telling me, hey, like, if I gave you $1 billion, where would you give it? Who would you give it to? And I couldn't honestly give him a great answer. And I felt convicted of that, so I kind of went down this journey where I've been to 8 different countries in the last 12 months, and I already have plans to go to Costa Rica for spring break and see a missionary. I already have plans to go to Thailand in February. I've been to Belize. I helped our seniors go to Belize on their senior trip. I've been to Poland to help with Ukrainian refugees and a missionary over there that's having, you know, health issues. Been to Ireland, been to Guatemala, El Salvador, and to me, like, every single time I leave a missions trip, like, I always feel the same type of things. It's 3 things that hit me every time. First of all, these people have nothing most of the time. Now, Europe is a whole different ballgame, okay? So, like, just cut that out of there. But Poland and they're very similar, you know, to the United States. But a lot of these other mission trips you go to, people have nothing and they don't know they have nothing. They're happy and thankful. It's just amazing to me. Like, second of all, we are spoiled in the United States. So a lot of the stuff that we even talked about today, like, first world problems, really. Like, and third of all, the people that are there, the people that are, you know, that have these orphanages, these people that have these missions out in different countries, they need our help. They need our prayers, they need our money. They also need connection. And that's one thing that I think is a surprise to most people, that they're longing for somebody to reach out to them and just text them and say, hey, how's it going? I'm thinking about you. So I would just challenge anybody that's out there right now, like, go on a trip, go on a missions trip. I believe it'll change your life. Get your kids to go on a missions trip and see how the rest of the world lives. You know, to me, like, there's no sense in having a bunch of money if, like, you're just going to die with a bunch of money. I mean, there's just a whole lot more to life than that. And you know, my whole statements are: be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have, to give. There should be a purpose much bigger than ourselves, and that's why we do our business. If it wasn't for that, like, honestly, me and my wife would have a little business. We wouldn't have 32 employees. We wouldn't be doing all this stuff for all the investors that we do. I do it so I can spend time, so I can focus on that give part of my legacy and my life.
It's awesome. No, I really appreciate that. I know that that's kind of that common bond that you and I share. If you don't mind, how do they get a hold of you? How do they find you? I know you have the Olson Group and you have a lot of different companies, but what's the easiest way to find you on?
So if you're looking for turnkeys, I would say to just go to the Active Turnkey podcast. It's really, we have a fun time with it. Me and Jared do it. We do video and audio. So you can find us on all the different platforms, or you just go to, you know, Spotify or wherever you do your podcasts and go to the Active Turnkey podcast. I do have the Good Success podcast, which we have about 300 episodes, I believe, on that we've recorded. Also, goodsuccess.com. I've been doing free calls. So just like, I used to do the mastermind. I still have this little bit of urge to kind of give back and, like, bring community together. So we do a free call once a month. This next call, I'm actually doing a call with a roundtable discussion with experts that I know that we're just trying to answer the question that we answered today, like, what's going on in the economy? What's going on in the housing market? What are you doing? What pivots are you doing? So we've been actually honestly talking about crypto as well, because I believe crypto is kind of one of these hidden things that technology is going to change even what we do in real estate over the next, you know, so many years. But and then we do a free event each year. We started this in 2020 called the Real Estate Free for All, and it's free for all the attendees. I do ask that people go online and get a ticket because I only have so many. My place only seats 100 people. But we have a great time. It's just, we try to have fun, be educational, and also connect and kind of a little bit mastermind and try to get everybody, you know, connected and try to see if we can help different people with different connections that they may need as well. And we just have a really good fun time with it. And that's all on goodsuccess.com. So that's probably the best places to find us. Okay.
Well, very good. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the insight. Just one more quick thank you to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Streamline Funding. Streamline Funding helps builders grow by providing capital for high leverage loans. Less down, more working capital to keep your projects moving and your portfolio growing. Get your deal done today by visiting streamlinefunding.com or calling 512-250 8575. Well, there you have it. Thank you, Realty listener and viewer. I appreciate you being a part of the podcast today. Make sure you go on and follow Tom Olson. Check him out, watch his podcast, follow what these guys do. They do fantastic work. Have a great day and happy investing.